What's going on, guys? Welcome to Everything Always. My name's Michael Roman. Now, it's been considered a done deal for quite some time now that eventually Tom Holland's Peter Parker would show up and as Spider-Man in the Sony Venom Verse. And now with about 12 hours to go until our very first look at not only the Morbius trailer, but our very first look at anything Venom Verse related since the shakeup in Spider-Man agreement rights towards the end of last year, a lot of people have wondered just how long it'll be before we see Tom Holland show up in the Sony Venom Verse. And if the new headline is correct, not only will we see him in the upcoming Morbius via a reference, but alongside another specific MCU character. We're going to break down where the initial report came from in form of a tweet. It's obviously been re-reported now, and what it means for the Morbius trailer being released tomorrow. If there can be an expectation we may just see him in reference in the trailer. Like I said, we'll break the whole thing down, but first, if you could grab the subscribe button. We're giving away 2 PlayStation 4 Pros, as well as a whole slew of other Marvel related stuff, including a limited edition Infinity Saga box set. All you have to do to be entered to win, hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell, leave a like and a comment on this video, and if you want, stick around to the end of the video. We'll get into all the giveaway stuff again there. Now, as I said in the prologue, when it comes to Spider-Man in the Sony Venom Verse, it's not a matter of if, but when, and that can be assumed as part of the re-agreement to keep Spider-Man in the MCU in the first place. And if Sony is the same company that they've been in the past, well then you can bet that they are chomping at the bit to get Spider-Man in any way they can, in any reference or cameo form, and especially for an unknown commodity and franchise like Morbius that isn't the sure-shot fan favorite like Venom. Having Spider-Man attached in any way adds not only instant value, but if it just so happens to be the MCU's Tom Holland's Peter Parker, then it makes it an almost assured success. Now, as reported by a ton of places today, but we swam upstream to find the original report posted to a Twitter account, Dr. Movie News 1, the full hashtag Morbius scoop. Not only will J.K. Simmons have a supporting role, JJ interviews Dr. Michael Morbius at the Daily Bugle, but Spider-Man will have a presence in the film via quote-unquote wanted posters, thus taking place after Far From Home. The MCU and Sony Spider-Verse are bridged. And admittedly, while it's a lot harder to put stock in a Twitter report that doesn't cite any sources than, say, one of the trusted insiders or one of the publications that actually has a public track record, you have to admit that some of those details are pretty specific. And as we've said many times here at the channel, if they're going to pull this off in any way, they have to at least let that Sony Venomverse be adjacent, meaning reference things and characters that make sense for Spider-Man's arc so that he doesn't exist in an island and in a bubble when he shows up in their Venomverse. Now, an interesting fact, if you poke around that same Twitter account and in a completely separate post, again not citing any sources, they clarify what they mean by bridged, and in this case it happens to be the exact opposite of what I said would happen. It implies that the Sony Venomverse is adjacent to the MCU and that they can reference events and specific characters like Avengers, especially where it concerns Peter Parker. But then it goes on to say that the only movies in the MCU which will reference the Venomverse are those Spider-Man movies that are co-produced by Sony themselves, and that is extremely interesting. A stark, pun intended, departure from the way that they've done it in the past, and just now, with Sony having reconsolidated all of the TV rights, taken everything off TV, yes, barring that new report that they are in talks to put another series on ABC, they took everything and put it at Marvel Studios, where there was a Netflix adjacent universe, this Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. adjacent universe where they could reference the MCU, but the MCU would never reference them and they weren't canon. They got rid of all that to turn around and now have movies outside of the MCU canon is something that absolutely blows my mind. But hey, they wanted to keep Peter Parker and specifically Tom Holland in the MCU for just a little while longer, presumably until that next big crossover movie, and the price to do so may have meant that they had to allow Sony's Venomverse to make sense of all this narratively, and in doing so had to at least allow them to reference their own movies in the Spider-Man movies so that they could set up just a little more connective tissue for how Peter Parker would show up there in the first place, which, outside of some crazy explainer like the Multiverse of Madness, makes the most sense to just take the only movie in existence for the Venomverse, like Venom, and then through retcon put it in the MCU and make sure going forward that you just play by the MCU continuity rules, which is much easier said than done. In the very first film co-produced between Sony and Marvel, they were able to screw up a date somehow with I don't know how many editors making sure something like that didn't happen. That's why this is such a dangerous game, and something I don't believe Kevin Feige wants to play, but something he may have to play because he wants to keep Peter Parker in the MCU, which leads me to this next point. When you have a universe like the one we've got now, referring to the main Marvel Cinematic Universe continuity as the 616, the same continuity where Thanos snapped half of the population of the universe out of existence, the Incredible Hulk snapped them back, and oh yeah, there's the existence of this worldwide superhero team called the Avengers that's grown exponentially throughout the last decade and a half. When you exist in that world, it's very hard to play by those rules and make sure that you don't create a huge plot hole by not logically allowing elements of that world to exist where logically they would. And listen, it's not that complicated, let me explain. In Venom 2, we're clearly going to be getting into the Carnage storyline, and it is going to be hard to explain to any logical viewer why at least one other street level hero doesn't show up to fight the huge red alien symbiote monster that's killing everybody. Yes, Spider-Man can show up, and you can put it on the West Coast, set it in San Francisco where Venom 1 took place, or some other city on the West Coast, and you can say the Avengers are in New York, but let's be real, it wouldn't take them long to fly that same jet they've had since Avengers 1 that surely made some upgrades across the country, let alone how quickly Captain Marvel could get there. Again, it's going to be hard to logically explain why any of these other heroes don't show up whenever there's a threat that would call for them. And although we are getting ahead of ourselves, that leads us directly back to Morbius and the trailer that we'll be getting in the next 12 hours. If they are truly as bold enough to put any reference to Peter Parker, Spider-Man, or even the J.K. Simmons, Jonah Jameson character that we know is already in the MCU in that trailer, then it's going to be a huge deal, because now they've committed and even doubled down to having to play within the confines of those rules, which is going to put Morbius even under that much more of a microscope to make sure that this new player that wants to be in the MCU did it correctly. And for a movie and a franchise like Morbius, again, an unproven commodity, completely never been done before, that's not the kind of microscope that it needs. Look, for a lot of people, there's not a lot of expectation for Morbius or really anything comic book related coming out of Sony, but to be totally fair, they've done a lot of good stuff here recently, including Into the Spider-Verse, and if they're going to play this dangerous game of putting it anywhere near the MCU, then there's going to be some expectations levied. I'm on record as saying I didn't hate Venom 1 as much as a lot of people, but it surely let a lot of people down, and if that's the quality of the film that they're going to have, if it's going to have that much divisiveness among the fan base in the way that Marvel movies really don't, then I think it's going to have a hard time blending in. It may alter the course of things going forward. Remember, this sharing agreement for Peter Parker only extends in the MCU through the third installment of his initial trilogy, and then one additional crossover movie, which a lot of people have pointed to either the Fantastic Four or the next Avengers film. But either way, after that, they've got to extend that agreement again. And if Sony holds steadfast to making sure that their Sony Venom Verse and characters like Venom and Morbius have to cross over into the MCU to allow them to keep using Peter Parker, but they themselves don't hold their films up to not only the standard and the quality that Kevin Feige expects, but that we expect as the audience from a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, then they're going to find themselves in trouble. And in the end, I think that might lead to the removal of Tom Holland's Peter Parker from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, in my final thought and parting, what I will leave you with is my wish for Morbius and this whole sharing agreement is whatever's in the best interest of the MCU and keeping Tom Holland's Peter Parker there for the foreseeable future, then that's what I'm for. And if that means that he's got to cross over into Morbius and that Morbius has to succeed and be a good movie, well, then I'm all for that too. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments about all of this. If Spider-Man even shows up in that movie, how crazy it would be, and are you already hyped for this knowing that the trailer's coming tomorrow? And how crazy is it that Sony's going heads up with Marvel and releasing the Morbius trailer in the morning when they know they're releasing the second Black Widow trailer that same evening? Let me know what you think in the comments. Sounds a little bit petty to me, but maybe that's just my opinion. And quickly, let's get into the giveaway stuff before I let you go. We're still giving away 2 PlayStation 4 Pros, the next of which now is at the 600,000 subscriber mark. We just gave 2 away at the 500,000 subscriber mark. You can easily find that video. It has it in the title. If you want to be entered to win either either of the PlayStations or the limited edition Infinity Saga box set. Again, we just gave one away of these on New Year's Eve. All the same rules apply. Hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell, leave a like and a comment on this video, and because it's truly random, the more videos you like and comment on, the better chance you have of winning. It automatically enters you to win all of the prizes we're giving away and all the future prizes we give away here at the channel, and all winners are announced at the end of videos. So if you've missed any of the recent winners or the previous ones, all you have to do is scroll back through the channel. You'll see it in the title, click that video and scroll to the end. My name's Michael Roman. This is Everything Always, guys. Thanks so much for checking out the channel and stick around. We'll be posting again real soon.